In the wake of the worst terrorist attack on Australian soil, demands for a wide-ranging inquiry into the causes came swiftly.
The Jewish community made it abundantly clear. They want a Commonwealth Royal Commission.
Instead, the Prime Minister appointed a former spy chief to look into potential intelligence failings in the lead-up to the killings.
I don't think anyone can argue that there is anyone in this nation who is more qualified to oversee a review of our national security agencies and network and interrelationship between Commonwealth and state government than Dennis Richardson.
And obviously with national security information, by definition, it doesn't lend itself to public inquiry, by definition. We need this information quickly. It's in the interests of everyone's safety that we get it quickly.
By early January, an avalanche of political and media demands for a royal commission saw the Prime Minister relent, appointing former Justice Virginia Bell.
This was an anti-Semitic terrorist attack aimed at Jewish Australians.
And rolling Dennis Richardson's separate probe into the Bell inquiry. The former senior public servant today making it clear that his involvement had become surplus to requirements.
I was on 5,500 a day. When you stripped everything down, I was essentially being employed as a research officer.
Richardson's abrupt departure has prompted the opposition to cast a cloud over the Royal Commission, which is still in its early days, for a report due by the first anniversary of the December 14 attacks.
I think the destination the Royal Commission gets to will be not much different to the destination if I had have remained there or if I had have been doing it alone. It's simply that their destination takes a different route.
The Albanese government says it took its initial advice from the heads of Australia's security agencies based on the argument that Richardson's inquiry would be the most efficient way to identify gaps or shortcomings across spy and police agencies. That argument was drowned out by a cavalcade of groups and sporting figures arguing for a royal commission.
Come down off your high horse and stop trying to run for cover. If the Jewish community is calling for a royal commissioner, then do the right thing by this community.
The opposition said Richardson's departure is a very serious loss.
We need to see this Prime Minister step up, explain why Dennis Richardson has stepped down and explain how he's going to fix it. Because, as I say, this Royal Commission is so important.
A question Angus Taylor inexplicably failed to put to the Prime Minister during question time only a few hours later. Richardson has told 7:30 the Royal Commission's interim report, which is due on April 30 and which he'd been working on, will have few findings or recommendations about the role of intelligence agencies in the lead-up to Bondi. Instead, he says, it will highlight areas that require further examination.
On my part, this is not a failure of the government.
He also expressed confidence in the Royal Commission and its capacity to get the answers we all want.
Dennis Richardson's departure from a Royal Commission the government expects to cost as much as $150 million looks like a classic clash of cultures between those who back a lawyer and judge-dominated inquiry versus Canberra bureaucratic preference for a narrower probe headed by a specialist in the underlying topic. Royal Commissions have a habit of going over budget and over time, but inquiries by technocrats can suffer from public cynicism and perceptions of political interference. Australians expecting quicker answers to the circumstances of the Bondi atrocities will have to be patient.
A Royal Commission is independent of the government. That's one of the reasons that the opposition were calling for a Royal Commission, saying Mr Richardson's inquiry wasn't good enough.
I am very confident that when the Royal Commission produces its findings and recommendations on intelligence and law enforcement, people will appreciate it and people will respect it.